It's my great pleasure to welcome back Dr. Alan Berger, a wonderful friend of the Friendly Circle Berlin. And Alan has been doing these workshops for close to 5 years now. And he does these every first Monday of every month. And this current series is called Emotional Sobriety and the 12 Steps. And he's covering the core value, the principle and core value of each step. Today, we are on step 11, and I will turn it over to you, Alan. And it's great to see you. Thank you, as always, for all you bring to us.
Well, thank you, Patrick. And it's always a pleasure to be here and to see this community that we have just grow to the size that it has grown. And I love being here. I love being a part of it. I love sharing what I've been learning, and for many different reasons. Is one is that my personal experience with emotional sobriety has opened up so many possibilities in my own life. It has given me a way of dealing with pain and disappointment and the struggle that life is always going to put in front of us, right? But in a way to meet it and to really be able to extract from my experience some wisdom, some capacity of feeling more and more that my ability to cope with life on life's terms is growing and evolving. And I think of that as maturity. As you probably heard me speak before, is that I'm trained as a clinical psychologist, and I know a lot about pathology, right? I've had many courses in psychopathology. But I truly believe that what we all suffer from is a growth disorder that underlies all of our problems. Is when you get stuck in, or when I got stuck in my development, I'll keep it personal, that I realized that a big part of my problem was that I never grew beyond the stage of it's all about me. And when I kept making everything about me, it becomes a very impossible way of life, as Bill Wilson noted, because I'm reacting all the time. And because my self esteem was so dependent on what we call other based validation, what happened around me overly influenced who I was, how I behaved, how I acted, etc., etc., etc. Bill described our program as a quest for freedom. I can't tell you how meaningful that has become to me. I can see the wisdom that Bill really captured with that statement. Of course, our first concern is our freedom from our addiction and breaking the bonds. Ernie Larson called that stage one recovery. But stage two recovery is finding freedom from the forces that are within me that I'm unaware of that are determining my life. And the major force, Bill called it our basic flaw, is my emotional dependence. That's the root of my problems. All of them, because out of that dependence grows expectations, grows my reactivity. It's what it shows where I'm stuck at in my life, etc., etc. So as we've been taking a journey through these steps, we're taking that journey because it's a little known fact that Bill Wilson even stated very clearly in step 12 that if we practice the principles in the 12 steps in our daily lives, that we and those about us find emotional sobriety. See, the goal, the outcome, the desired outcome of working the steps is emotional sobriety. I've recently celebrated 54 years clean and sober. 54 years. You know how many times I've heard that in a meeting? I heard it when I bring it up, when I talk about it in a meeting, but I've never heard anybody talk about that before. That's the goal of our program, is the achievement of emotional sobriety. But do we know what that is? Well, we get a sense of it if you've read Bill's letter that was published in the 1958 Grapevine, actually written in 1953. You get an idea because he synthesized all of his experience and ideas about what emotional sobriety was in that letter. And I've taken it as part of what I want to bring to the recovery community is to take Bill's work and try to extend it and integrate all of the things I've learned as a psychotherapist and as a psychologist. Because the psychology, the underlying psychology of the or what I would call the therapeutic value of the 12 steps is unbelievable. I have never, and I've been exposed to a lot of different ways of helping people. There has never been a way, a protocol, a way of helping people that has affected the lives of so many people. Millions and millions of people are living a better life today because of their experience in 12-step recovery. Some of it is because, incidentally, if you work the steps, you're going to start learning about emotional sobriety. But there's a magic that happens when you make that a conscious effort. When we've been talking about the 12 steps, I'm talking about taking a second pass through the 12 steps, taking a second first step. The second first step being looking at your powerlessness over your growth disorder, so to speak, over your emotional dependence. And then taking a second pass through all of the steps, but this time targeting our emotional dependence and how to grow up. You see, if you look at the steps from that particular point of view, if you put that lens on, if you look at it from that perspective, boy, it opens up so many things. And what it really opens up is it reignites this force in you that will help you grow into what you can be. You will recover your lost real self. We lost it back a long time ago in our life when we decided that I have to actualize a concept of who I am because who I am is not good enough. So I reject myself, and accept some idea of who I should be. And now I spend the rest of my life trying to live up to that idealized image. Never going to work if that's part of that impossible way of life. It's funny when you think about it, we are the only species that thinks if I'm something other than I am, I'd be okay. A cat does not want to be a dog. It just lays around being a cat. Dog doesn't want to be a cat. It's just okay being a dog. A tree doesn't want to be a rock. It's just a tree and it accepts itself as it is. We're the only species that has trouble accepting ourselves as we are. A big part of emotional sobriety is our ability to accept ourselves as we are. Acceptance is a core issue. Because without acceptance, there can be no change. Nothing changes. Nothing can change. Acceptance is a prerequisite to any kind of a deep change in your life. We'll talk more about that, but I'll just say this, in that early on, Dr. Tebow noted that he was the first psychiatrist that befriended Alcoholics Anonymous. And what he saw was that there was a difference between people that what he called complied, partially accepted the truth of their condition, but never fully surrendered to it. He called that compliance or submission to an idea. And when we partially accept our situation, we accept so on an intellectual level, a conscious level, but deep inside we have a reservation. We have a resistance to the acceptance. That resistance manifests itself as a hidden thought that says, there'll come a day when I can go ahead and drink like a normal person again. There'll come a day when I can use cocaine recreationally. There'll come a day when I could fill in the blank, whatever your addiction is. So when you're in compliance rather than acceptance, there's still a tension inside of you about your existence, about the truth of your life. There's still an unwillingness to accept what it is. I was just talking to a gentleman before we jumped on, and probably maybe one of the brightest men I've ever worked with, incredibly intelligent, top drawer lawyer, unbelievable so. Went to Harvard, top of the class. I mean, unbelievably so. His mind is incredible. He cannot accept that he's an alcoholic. Just can't do it. His mind just doesn't let him do it. He says, if I really, I should be able to figure this out. Should be able to figure this out. People that are very bright have a hard time in this program because it means it's accepting that there's something out of your control. And when you relied on the superiority of your intelligence, you think you can figure everything out. Medical doctors, lawyers, right, judges, all of those people, athletes, professional athletes have a hell of a time surrendering. Now, when you surrender to the reality of your condition, when you surrender, now that takes place not only at a conscious level, but unconsciously, you accept that this is my truth. You no longer judge yourself for it. Reality is just the reality of your life. You don't take it personally. You see, as soon as I take it personally, people that don't accept their condition are because they take it personally. They think it means that it's reflecting that they're less than, that they're somehow weak, that they somehow have a flaw in their character or in their morals. Nothing to do with any of that. Not a thing. But when you take it personally, it's hard to accept it because it means that it takes something away from you. But you see, when you surrender to the reality of your condition, you surrender at a conscious and unconscious level. There is no more tension. There is a complete freedom that this is over. I don't have to fight reality. If I fight reality, guess who wins? Reality. I love what Herb Kagan says. He says, if you go on the top of a building, you jump off reality and you try to defy gravity and flap your arms as fast as you can, you're going against a law of nature. You're going to fall, break your bone, or kill yourself if you jump off a building. He says there's also those kinds of laws that are true spiritually and psychologically. If I deny who I am and I delude myself into thinking I can be something other than I am, I'm going to be jumping off a lot of buildings. How many of you have jumped off a building? I have many, many times. My God. And then I get pissed off. Well, what happened? Maybe if I jump at a different angle next time, it'll work better, right? Then I go back up on the roof again. You see, when we do that, the insanity, we talk about the insanity of doing the same thing and expecting, I don't say we expect different results, we expect better results. And the reason we expect better results is because we don't learn from our experience. See, you can boil down growth and maturity to one thing: the ability to learn from your mistakes. That's what growth involves. It happens biologically, naturally. If you're trying to learn to walk, you're going to fall. A child's going to fall a lot of times before they figure out how to walk, how to become bipedal after being on hands and knees. How many times do we fall? As many as we need to. We don't have any rule in our head. We don't should on ourselves at that age. Later on, we learn how to should on ourselves really good. And we come up with all these rules and ideas about who we're supposed to be and how quickly we're supposed to learn this and that and all that other nonsense that goes on that drives us crazy and makes it impossible to learn from our experience. If I see a mistake as a reflection of who I'm not, instead of as a reflection of me really still learning how to figure things out, then it's going to be hard for me to learn from my mistake because it goes to now my false pride. Hard to look at that, hard to face it because I think it's taking something away from me. I say all the time now, and I remind myself of this, I am not defined by my mistakes. I make a lot of mistakes. I am defined by how my relationship to those mistakes and how I try to learn from them. That's what defines me today. So here we are, step 11. We've come a long way when we start working this. What I'm going to do is share some of my slides with you. And then what we're going to do today is we're going to take a look at the St. Francis prayer, because Bill talks very, very, very strongly suggesting that this is a path to our meditation and prayer. Okay, let's just look at it. This is not an exhaustive summary of the landscape of emotional sobriety. I am doing an exhausted discussion of this on Thursday nights on the emotional sobriety workshop I do every week, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I know for those of you in Europe, it's a terrible time. But all of those workshops are also on a YouTube channel called Optimal Recovery and Emotional Sobriety with my name on it. So you can go to a YouTube channel, Optimal Recovery, Emotional Sobriety. There's over 200 videos in there. Right now we're going through this here, which is a discussion of the landscape of emotional sobriety. So in emotional sobriety, we begin to live our lives by our new truth rather than the old lie. We hear it all the time, is that until we let go of our old ideas, the result is no, right? That's what we're told. But what does it mean? What old ideas? Excuse me, I want to get a sip of my coffee. So there are many different old ideas we have, but the one that I think is at the core of our difficulties is the idea that I'm okay if only this would happen this way, I will be fine. See, we create, because of our consciousness is stuck in an early stage of development, we look at the world through this lens of contingency. My well-being is contingent upon all these things happening around me. Now, is that true in our early development? Of course it is. There's no such thing as just nature and nurture. They combine together, and we need to have a certain environment to grow up to help us develop our intrinsic possibilities, our intrinsic potentialities, which none of us get. You have to have parents that have had that experience, and I don't think anybody's had that experience. You can't give somebody something you don't have. So until we let go of this idea, this if only idea, I'm okay if idea, and adopt a new way of looking at things, which says I'm okay even if. Meaning that it's not what's happening to me that's causing the problem. The problem that I am creating is inherent. It's in the relationship I have with the experience I'm having. When the experience I'm having is claiming me rather than me claiming the experience, I'm in trouble. I'm in a reactive mode or reactive response mode rather than in what we call an active response to what's happening. That's why I say we become self-supporting. I start to learn how to deal with this. And now, in one way, I think of it as taking back my emotional center of gravity. In my immaturity, I give my center of gravity to all of you, and how you treat me is going to depend on how I feel. Now, when I take it back, it's what I do that's the determining force in my life, not what you're doing. I take my center of gravity back into me. So I become more ability to support myself. That doesn't mean I become defiantly independent. I still need relationships. I still need my environment, but my responsibility is to meet my environment in a way to try to get my needs met, not the other way around. Not to expect my environment to meet my needs, especially if you love me. Of course, you'll make me happy, right? That's part of that big lie. We strive to let the best of us do the thinking and talking for the rest of us. That's what emotional sobriety is about. So do you see, as we're starting to unravel this, our dependency, we're now establishing more and more emotional freedom. Bill Wilson called it a true independence of spirit. A true independence of spirit. We strive to develop the best possible attitudes towards our life, the attitude that I'm talking about, right? That we become the determining force in our life, not all these things around us. We strive to develop the best possible attitude towards our experiences, our relationship with self and others, and with our problems. See, there's a whole shift. Dr. Jung called it a total reorganization of our personality takes place. There's major shifts inside of us, and these become very important. Life will still have its peaks and valleys. Emotional sobriety is no guarantee that everything's going to go your way. Quite the opposite. It has nothing to do with things going your way. It has to do with learning how to deal with whatever is happening for you. So life still has its peaks and valleys, but we have a better sense of what we're dealing with and how to cope with it, right? How to cope with the reality, especially when we're disappointed or we're sad or we're hurt because things don't go our way. And then I like to think about this is that we discover and recover our lost real self. You see, in many ways, what emotional sobriety is about is it's about now kind of sparking an interest in ourselves that we've lost. You see, when we developed our what we call our adaptation to whatever issues we faced early on in our life that were presented to us by both our culture and by the dynamics in our family, that adaptation resulted in becoming very much stereotyped. It meant certain things were okay to do, other things were not. And the more I fragmented myself and now pushed certain parts of me to the foreground and pushed other parts of me away, the less flexibility I had in being able to cope with reality. Abraham Maslow says when all you have is a hammer in your tool belt, then everything has to be a nail. Think about that. When all you have is a hammer, everything has to be a nail. If all you have is a Phillips screwdriver, then everything has to be a Phillips screw. If you have a saw, that's all you got in your tool belt, then everything, you got to cut everything to deal with things. But if you have all the tools that you can have in your tool belt, you can have what we call an appropriate and honest relationship with reality and respond the best possible way to whatever challenge or task is being set in front of you. I think that's a good analogy, isn't it? I like that. Is that right, Wendy? Is that a shaking your head? Okay. So we reignite. First of all, we reignite our interest in ourselves. We also, emotional sobriety is about reigniting our development. That's the cure for the growth disorder. We continue our emotional development. We're stuck, not sick. We got to get unstuck. This is unsticking ourselves. Emotional sobriety is unsticking ourselves from the stuck position we've been in. So here we are, step 11. Before we do, this is what Bill said. He says, it never occurred to us that we needed to change ourselves to meet conditions, whatever they were. You see, before what we tried to do is we change the conditions we were meeting rather than change ourselves. Well, if you were a reasonable person, of course you would do things my way. No, that's completely unreasonable. But I think I'm being reasonable. You see, my expectations are reasonable. Yours are not. That's the game I play with myself. No expectations are reasonable. Sometimes they're aligned with reality, sometimes they're not. The more my expectations are aligned with reality, the better I can function. When my expectations become misaligned with reality, I'm in trouble. So here we are, step 11. sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. I see this step as a step that is focused on learning more about who we really are. This step is focused on expanding our consciousness. Every powerful approach to psychotherapy expands your consciousness. And you don't just stop when you're on that journey. That this development, this new relationship to our growth and development is a lifelong process. Freud even noted that back when he discovered psychoanalysis. He says psychoanalysis is interminable. You never stop, you never graduate. You continue to develop and unfold and recover your lost development. That's what we're doing in the program. This is about expanding our consciousness. Bill says this, in its deeper sense, A is a quest of freedom. Of course, the immediate objection is a quest of our quest is sobriety. But the next step is emotional sobriety. He says, without this, we have nothing at all. See, that's what we're striving for. Is how do we do that? So this is what step 11 is about. He says, and when we turn away from meditation and prayer, we likewise deprive our minds, our emotions, and our intuitions of vitally important support. This is how we continue to learn self-support. When I say expanding our consciousness, we are expanding the possibilities for self-support. He goes on to say there is a direct linkage among self-examination, meditation, and prayer. Not just meditation, prayer, self-examination. Self-examination can be thought of as self-awareness. So we are aware of self. Self-examination can also be thought of our awareness with other people. Self-examination can be thought of as how we deal with our problems. Self-examination includes all of these things: our relationship to self, our relationship to problems, our relationship to others, and our relationship to life. Those 4 areas are the areas that we need to be aware of and paying attention to in our life. He says, taken separately, any one of these practices can bring much relief. We see that psychotherapy can be incredibly helpful. Prayer and meditation prayer can be helpful for people. Meditation can be helpful for a teacher. He says, but when they are logically interwoven, the result is an unshakable foundation for life. Unshakable. That can be a phrase to describe emotional sobriety. When you bring your emotional center of gravity back over your feet, it's hard to knock someone off their feet. But if I give you my emotional sobriety, when I do a live presentation, there's nobody here to do this with me. If somebody grabs my hand and I'm standing on one leg and they move away from me, I'm going to follow them. I'm going to fall off balance in their direction. If they hold my hand and I drop down and I take my center of gravity, and I do, when I was in Vietnam, we had 2 Korean Marines assigned to us because we were likely to go into a combat situation that involved some hand-to-hand combat. The first thing we learned was a horse stance. When I drop into a horse stance, that person can pull me and I'm not going anywhere. I'm pretty rock solid. Now, yeah, if that person's 300 pounds and they grab me, yeah, they can knock me off my feet, but it's not going to be easy. It takes a lot to knock me off my feet physically when I'm in that kind of a grounded position. When I give away my center of gravity, it's easy to knock me off my feet. And this is why we come up with all of the unenforceable rules. It's because if I have all these rules and I don't know how to take care of myself, and you go along with these things, I won't get knocked off balance as much. But you see, what I've done when I do that, I project the responsibility for my well-being onto you. And so if you just did these things, I would never get knocked off balance. So damn it, would you please listen to me? I mean, that's how this stuff happens. God, if you just do it my way, don't you see the wisdom in what I'm doing? Can you believe how manipulative I can be in a relationship? Dealing with my psychological knowledge, I can make a turd look like it's a gift. I mean, it's terrible what we do. Oh, all right. He goes on to say this. He goes, as we have seen, self-searching is by means which we bring new visions, actions, and grace to bear upon the negative and dark sides of our nature. Think of the dark side as your dumb, enraging, hidden Mr. or Mrs. Hyde, the part of you that wants everything your way, that demands it, that throws a fit, objects to reality, has a pity party when things don't go your way, tries to manipulate other. That's the dark side of our nature. And every one of us has it. If you look at a kid, we all start that way. Those kids are unbelievably manipulative. An infant is not powerless. They manipulate the hell out of their parents through their crying and whining. They will whine and annoy you until you do what they want you to do. And then they'll stop. I mean, there's no more reinforcement than that. We call it negative reinforcement, right? When you take away something, whether it's positive or negative, in this case, you're taking away, the child stops crying, you take away a negative thing, that's called negative reinforcement. Negative reinforcement doesn't always negative. So you can have positive negative reinforcement and you can have negative reinforcement. That's for another course on conditioning and psychology. We're not going to go there today. But my point is that what we're trying to do is put the best of us in charge of the rest of us, not our dumb and raging hidden Mr. or Mrs. Hyde. That's the immature part of us that thinks if everything goes our way, we'll be okay. We're striving to be okay regardless of what's happening, regardless of what someone else is doing, regardless of whatever experience life decides to put in front of us. Some are easier to deal with than others. I have a lot of appreciation of that. So Bill recommends that we use the St. Francis prayer as part of prayer and meditation, right? So what we're going to do today, we're going to go ahead and go through the St. Francis prayer. We're going to look at it, but I'm going to turn it around. We're going to look at it from a very different perspective. Most of you are used to looking at this as our relationship to someone else, right? What we're going to do today is I'm going to ask you to set aside that idea you have of the St. Francis prayer and think of this as a relationship to yourself and your experiences. So I'm going to ask you to shift your consciousness. Okay? You're going to look at this from what? Instead of looking at it from a relationship to your relationship with other people and what's happening with other people, you're going to relate this whole St. Francis prayer to yourself. You ready? I'm waiting for Wendy to say yes. Wendy said yes, so we're ready. Oh, okay. So Lord, let me be a channel of your peace. Now, what that said, the first one is let me be a channel of your peace, meaning bringing peace to the world, right? But I want you to think of emotional sobriety as being able to bring peace to yourself. Emotional sobriety involves learning to quiet your mind and calm your heart. Quiet your mind and calm your heart. When you are agitated for whatever the cause, when you're disturbed, whatever the cause, the best of you cannot be thinking for the rest of you. You're going to become reactive, especially if you're anxious. Forget it. Anxiety is very hard to deal with. And if you don't take some minute to get grounded in it, you're going to be very reactive to the anxiety. And most of the time, we react by trying to control the people and conditions surrounding us. That's what Bill said. We control the people and conditions. We make demands on them because we want to get rid of our anxiety. Now, let's watch how this works when we apply this to that. Where there is hatred, I may bring love. Where I hate myself, where I'm disgusted with myself, where I don't like myself, I can learn to deal with that part of me that hates me, that doesn't like me, that is disgusted with me, that judges me, and learn how to replace that with love. That where I have done things that are wrong, where I've made mistakes, hurt people I've loved and care about, that I'm able to deal with those mistakes by bringing a spirit of forgiveness to myself, by focusing on what I can learn from my mistake, not that I made a mistake, by focusing on what that mistake is telling me about my next step in my development, not that it's telling me that I am a mistake. You see the turnaround? Now I got Diane shaking her head. Go, Diane, go. It's very important. What we're doing is looking at now the St. Francis prayer in terms of what it means about our relationship with ourselves. It all begins with you. You can't give these things to other people until you learn how to do this for yourself. You guys got to hear that, please. The first step in being able to apply that St. Francis prayer to the world is to apply it to yourself. If you don't master these things in your own person and in your relationship with all the different parts of yourself, you're not going to be able to give it to somebody else. We say it all the time. You can't give something you don't have. If I don't have this kind of relationship with myself, how can I help you foster that kind of relationship with yourself? If I reject and hate certain parts of myself and I'm ashamed of those and I dare not let you see them, how can I help you face those parts? I can't. If I still hate myself, and look, we've got a history. What we do to ourselves when in our addiction, we are abusive to ourselves. I remember I took a creative writing class and I never thought of making amends to my body before. But what this creative writer did is said, write a letter to your body and talk to your body about the kind of relationship you have. I go, oh my God, I never thought I need to make amends to my body. I abuse the hell out of myself. That's self-hate. You don't do that to yourself. If you like yourself, if you love yourself, I would know sooner put my hand on a table and pick up a hammer and smash it. But I did that over and over again. That where there is discord, I may bring harmony. Where I am having a civil war, where I have this internal conflict, that I find a way to bring these disharmonious parts of myself into harmony. That I learn to face this discord. I don't project it, and that's what we do with a lot of stuff. If you don't deal with it, you project it. That's what happens with these things. You're going to project it. You're going to make other people responsible for this. You're going to make other people responsible for dealing with the conflict inside of yourself. That conflict in ourselves is very important because if you start to resolve it, it helps you become more and more integrated, more and more whole or holy. You start to move towards your wholeness, which is what we are actually, that's our intrinsic potentiality, is to become whole. How can I bring into harmony? There's a part of me that wants to stay married, part of me doesn't. There's a part of me that wants to be a parent, part of me doesn't. There's a part of me that wants recovery, another part of me doesn't. I got to face those conflicts. There's a part of me that wants to be ambitious, another part of me that wants to give up. There's a part of me that wants a relationship, another part of me that doesn't. There's a part of me that wants to be vulnerable, another part of me doesn't. There's a part of me that wants to accept myself, and another part of me doesn't. Oh my God. Talk about us being crazy. Think about all the conflict inside of you. That where there is error, where I have made mistakes, I can find some wisdom and truth that underlies those things instead of focusing on what that mistake means about me and that it reflects somehow a flaw in my character. It just reflects that I'm ignorant, that I've got a lot more growing up to do. How can I find that truth? By getting in there and digging out and facing these things, not avoiding them. You see, all of my self avoidance keeps me stuck and immature. There's things, big mistakes I've made that have hurt a lot of people. Those are hard to face without feeling like I'm a creep or an idiot or a bad person. But I need to face them if I want to grow up. That's what the steps are helping us do, is we need to face who we're not run away from it for a change. That where there is doubt, I may bring faith. Dr. Virginia Satir, one of my all-time favorites in terms of, she was one of the pioneers in family therapy and self-esteem. She had this great image that she shared. She goes, when I encounter a problem in my life, I take on a piece of paper, I draw a big circle. And in the middle of that circle, I put my name. And I say, what part of the problem I'm having has to do with my expectations about what was supposed to happen? What part of my problem is being caused by my interpretation and the meaning I'm giving to the experience I'm having? What part of my problem, and listen to this one, because this is at the core of it, is being caused by my lack of faith in my ability to cope with life as it is? You see, not many of us have faith in ourselves, meaning self-confidence that we know how to cope with life on life's terms. That's why we've generated all these rules and ideas. We have a lot of doubt, self-doubt. And how can I now recover the knowledge, the faith that there is something in me that will move me towards figuring this out if I stop getting in my way with all of these ideas about who I should be? We talk about get out of our own way, but nobody ever teaches us that how we get in our way is with these shoulds. That's what's getting in our way, all these ideas of who I am rather than who I am. That where there is despair inside me, that I don't think any change or real, that I'm never really going to be happy, that life is never going to work, or I'm never going to find a relationship that's going to work. Or, I've relapsed so many times, I don't think it's possible. The first step is this desperation step. It's based on the fact that we can't stop drinking, or we can't stop using. That where I have despair, that I may bring some hope. How do I challenge that part of me? Now think about this. Every one of these things, if you work with me as a therapist, and those of you that have know that what I would do with you, if there's a part of you despairing, I'm going to have you talk to that part of you. Because the change comes from your relationship to those different parts of you. If there's a part of you that doubts you, I'm going to have you talk to that part of you and see if we can find a way for you to discover how to deal with that part. And if you do, you will start to have faith in yourself. If you can face your despair and learn how to help that part of you that's despairing, you're going to feel some hope. That where you have shadows, where there's parts of your person that you're not aware of that are running your life. And a lot of times, a big shadow part of us is our expectations and our demands. It's better to say our demands, because our expectations, a lot of us will admit, but we have a hard time admitting that we make demands for the possession and control of the people and conditions that surround us. That's a shadow side of us. That's the dumb and raging Mr. Hyde that Bill Wilson talked about. We've got to face that part of it to bring it into the light. I can't, if I keep pushing it away and denying it and refuse to look at it, nothing's going to change. If nothing changes, nothing changes. Isn't this a trippy way of looking at St. Francis, Bert? Very different way, isn't it? Very different way. I discovered this a while ago that where there is sadness inside of me, I may bring joy. How do I deal with the part of me that's sad? Sometimes by just supporting it, sometimes by having empathy with myself. It was great that you wanted that. And it's so unfortunate it didn't work out. But I'm so glad you let yourself want it. It's important to be able to want things in life, even if they don't turn out the way you want them to. That means you're alive. I can feel joy in being alive. I don't have to be happy. I can appreciate my experience, whether it's happy or sad. You see, being alive is being alive. It's feeling a whole range of possible experiences and emotions we can have as human beings. The goal of emotional sobriety is reclaiming all of you, not to be happy, but to be alive. That's the joy of living, is to be able to feel what you feel, experience, to become more real, to become accepting that I am who I am. I'm Popeye the Sailor Man, so to speak. Lord, grant that I may seek rather to comfort than to be comforted. So here it is, if we turn it around. I have to figure out how to start comforting myself instead of hoping you're going to comfort me, hoping you're going to say the thing that's going to calm me down and make me feel okay. I have to learn how to self-soothe, how to lick my own wounds, and not depend on you doing something that's going to make me feel okay. How to understand rather than be understood. You see, if I don't understand myself, then I'm going to demand that you understand me. And I'm going to look for you to be understood by you. But if I understand myself, I'm not so hooked up and dependent on whether you get me or not. If I get me, if you don't, I can say, God, that's too bad. I wish you would. But if you don't, that's fine. I understand what's going on with me. I don't need you to get me to know what's going on. I need to understand myself to be able to love myself rather than to be loved. If I don't love myself, I can't imagine anybody else is going to love me. And I'm going to put you through all kinds of tests and trials and tribulations to prove that you do. And then if you don't do it the way I think you should do it, I'm going to think you don't love me. And then you're on the other side of that relationship going, my God, no matter what I do, he's not happy. That sucks. To comfort myself rather than to be comfort, to understand myself rather than demanding that everybody understands me, to love myself rather than to be loved. For it is by self-forgetting that one finds. What are we forgetting? We're giving up the idea of who we think we should be. You've heard it when I say things like emotional sobriety is learning to act for yourself without being selfish. You see what we're forgetting? I forget that it's all about me, and now I can be in relationship to you and me at the same time. Emotional sobriety is learning to act for others without losing yourself, right? I don't have to, I'm forgetting this idea that I just have to serve you to be okay, that there's room for me in the relationship too. It's getting to balance is what Bill is talking about here. Being balanced within ourselves first before I can be balanced in my relationship with you. If I can forgive myself, then I'm forgiven. That's what the ninth step is so important about. If I go to you and I understand what I've done wrong, and I go to you and I'm sincerely making amends, whether you accept it or not, I forgive myself. If my forgiveness of myself is dependent on you, then I'm approaching the ninth step wrong. Same with the 10th step. It is by dying that one awakens to eternal life. What's dying here? Our false self. All the ideas about who we're supposed to be, so we can discover our real self, who we are. Carl Jung saw that the human psyche always strives towards wholeness, strives to complete itself and become more conscious. Each person's psyche has an inborn evolution urge to grow, to integrate the conscious of the unconscious, to bring together all the missing parts of the individual into a complete, whole, and conscious self. That's the goal of emotional sobriety.
Right on. Thank you, Alan. Thank you so much. Hold on, I'm going to let everybody on mute so they can all say thank you to Alan. Hold
Oh,
on a
look at all the
second.
hearts. I'm going to hold all those hearts.
Yeah,
There.
everybody can unmute now.
Oh my God,
Thank you.
thank
Thank
you,
you,
Alan.
Alan.